I must say that the first week of the campaign has been dogged by accusations and a lot of scaremongering coming from senior government ministers in relation to the consequences of a no vote. And what they're trying to do is to scare the Irish people into voting for a treaty that is bad for the Irish people, that is bad for Europe as a whole, and they are finding it difficult to find any positive idea that they can present to the Irish people as a reason to vote for this referendum. It is important to outline the facts, and what Sinn Féin want to do here today is go back to the treaty and look at what is actually in the treaty, and in particular we want to shine a light on one of the rules within the treaty, that is in Article 3 in terms of the structural deficit. And there is an onus and a responsibility on those that are arguing for a yes side to spell out exactly to the Irish public where they will find the additional money to comply with the structural deficit rule. If we look at the government's own fiscal projections in 2015, when this rule would apply to Ireland if we were to ratify the austerity treaty, the structural deficit would be 3.5%. The target under the austerity treaty is not 0.5%, which is a gap in the region of €6 billion. And this is on top of the €8.6 billion of austerity measures that the government have already planned to introduce between now and 2015. So what we're challenging the government to say very clearly and to spell out is where they intend to get the money, where they intend to impose the cuts, which taxes they propose to increase to bridge that gap of at least €6 billion. And if we are to have an honest debate, then we need to go back to what is in the treaty. There's no point in type of scaremongering. Let's deal with the facts that are here in the treaty and what is contained within Article 3, the structural deficit rule. So the challenge today from Sinn Féin is to demand on the Taoiseach, on the Minister for Finance, to be honest and upfront with the public. Which taxes you're going to increase, how many more public sector workers you're going to remove from services, which services are going to be restricted, what type of cuts you're planning to implement to comply with this rule. It's very clear from our point of view, those of the Irish people who are opposed to austerity, who believe in growth in the Irish economy, who want to give it a chance for the Irish economy to return to prosperity, those that are opposed to the type of measures that have been introduced and are being planned to be introduced over the next number of years, that they have an obligation to come out very strongly on May the 31st and vote against this treaty, because there is no doubt that this will lead to further austerity measures and further cuts and tax increases, at least to the tune of €6 billion. That's my opening statement. I'll take questions from the media, and Mary Lou and Peadar Tóibín will also answer questions.
Here's starting. Today, the chairman of the Referendum Commission, Kevin Feeney, said that if Ireland votes no, one of the sources of funding to a country, the ESM, will no longer be available. At the very least, doesn't a no vote increase uncertainty about the future funding of the country?
Well, let's be very clear in this here. If this country were to vote no, emergency funding, if required, would be available from European sources.
How can you say that with any certainty?
I can say that for a number of reasons. First of all, the blackmail clause that is contained within the treaty is in complete conflict with the principle of the treaty, which is economic stability across the Eurozone. So does anybody really believe that a country, Ireland or otherwise, who requires emergency funding from European sources would be denied that, and as a result of that there would cause contagion and would be completely in conflict with the premises and the basis of the treaty? No, it's not a gamble. It's written very firmly in the treaty. The second reason I say that is because Ireland and the Referendum Commission have confirmed this today, that Ireland have a veto in relation to the establishment of the European Stability Mechanism. The European Stability Mechanism does not exist at this point in time, and for it to come into legal effect, it requires Article 136 to be ratified, the amendment to the European treaties, by the Irish Parliament. So the Irish government have done the right thing in terms of delaying that ratification, as Sinn Féin requested of them, to post this referendum, because they know that if the Irish people reject this treaty, and I hope that they do, that they will be able to go back to their European partners and demand the removal of the blackmail clause. And if the European partners fail to do that, we would have a veto in the establishment of the European Stability Mechanism. So it's very, very clear, regardless of what Michael Noonan and others have said, funding, emergency funding, will be available from European sources regardless of the outcome of this referendum.
Can I just make a point in respect of this business of Ireland potentially being isolated from our European partners in the event of a no vote? Need to be very careful here and again very accurate in terms of reading the temperature right across the European Union in respect of austerity and then in respect of this treaty. The austerity treaty that people will vote for on the 31st of May is not flavour of the month amongst the peoples across the European Union. We see in France, in the midst of the presidential campaign, Mr Hollande expressing a certain dissatisfaction. You see, for instance, the European Trade Union Confederation coming out, I think, for the first time in open opposition to a treaty. And the reason for that is that people now understand that you cannot develop growth and we will not have increased employment if we persist with an agenda that's about cutbacks and austerity. And as Piers has said and set out very clearly, there will be a cost associated with this treaty, and the government need to come out. Piers has given you the figures. The estimate is 6 billion of additional cuts and tax increases. The government need to come out and tell us where is that coming from. They ask, how will you pay for this? How will you pay for that? Let them come out and tell us how they're going to, where they're going to find that sum of money.
Well, I very much welcome the newfound interest in jobs creation that the government and the Yes camp have taken up in recent days. But they're talking the talk, they're not walking the walk. And what we need is people off the dole. We need people back into work, and that needs a stimulus package. I also want to reject absolutely this notion that you can take 8.6 billion in cuts and the new taxes in the next number of years, and that will find a way out of the recession. You can't cut your way out of this recession. Austerity is not working, and the government has yet to explain how it's going to find the extra 6 billion if it has its way with this treaty. And Lucinda Creighton, who I've often thought of as one of the more thoughtful and intelligent members of this government, that she doesn't know that it will be an extra 6 billion is shocking. And if the government wants to dispute our figure, which has been put together on Department of Finance calculations and verified by independent economists, well, then let the government produce its figures and let's have a debate about that.
We have a delegation here today to meet a number of the public representatives, and the view is to try and raise the profile and gain some support for the employees of Irish Cement Limited in both Platten and Limerick, who are on strike now for this is our 5th week in pursuance of the payment of wages that have been withheld by the company, and to try to put pressure on the company to comply with a Labour Court recommendation which has been accepted by us, and the company have refused to accept it.
I'm just up here today in support of the Irish cement workers who are owed money, outstanding monies, and they're looking to get paid. I have also a motion in front of the Drogheda Borough Council, and I'm looking for cross-party support in this motion. I know what it's like for the strikers. My father was in strike in the 70s with the same company, and that went on for 6 months, so I know how hard it is when you're trying to feed children and a family.
Okay, Garrod Kieran's name. I'm Privy the Coloshan Raheen Bray, Kilavantine. We're here in protest in our attempts to get a new school building. We've been at it for the last 15 years to no avail. All sorts of reasons we're being given, like planning permission, etc. All these are solved now. It's very simple. Just we need funding for a new school building to put us in a parity with the English medium schools in our area.
Sinn Féin Councillor John Brady. I'm here today to support Colosha Raheen, firstly as a public representative, but also as a parent of a child within the school at the moment, and another one due to start in the school in September coming. Colosha Closh Raheen have been campaigning now for the last 18 years for a purpose-built school to house themselves. Currently they're housed out of 2 separate buildings in Bray, totally inadequate for their needs. One location consists of prefabricated buildings which are leaking, rat infested and dilapidated in many ways. There are no sporting or recreational amenities attached to the school whatsoever. The school has been allocated funding in the past. The Town Council in Bray reserved a site in a major development owned by Pizarro Developments on what it was the old Bray Golf Club lands. Unfortunately, that site has now fallen into the NAMA process. The department withdrew the funding for the school, which has left it in a catch-22 situation now, that it has a site which is locked down in the NAMA process and has no funding whatsoever. So we're here to put pressure on the Minister, to put pressure on the government to secure the funding, allocate the funding immediately to allow this school, after 18 years of campaigning, to progress to full development stage and allow this Irish language school develop.